things. You made a comment a while ago with regards to hydroxychloroquine, and I have an article here that quotes the Henry Ford Health System, who did an extensive study on hydroxychloroquine, and they say that it significantly reduces the death rate of COVID patients. The study was highly analyzed by peer-reviewed, unlike many other studies, and quoting the executive officer said, as doctors and scientists, we look at the data for insight, and the data here is clear. There was a benefit to using the drug as a treatment for sick and hospitalized patients. And in talking with a lot of older doctors who have been around a while, and I trust their judgment and their use of hydroxychloroquine, they say that the initial studies didn't really use zinc with it, and they say that zinc is an enabler to be able to help hydroxychloroquine actually do its job of going after and reducing deaths in patients. Had a long conversation with a doctor earlier in the week, and he said, yes, as long as zinc is there, it really definitely does work. Without it, it's minimally effective. Would you like to comment on that?
Yeah. Thank you for that opportunity to comment. The Henry Ford Hospital study that was published was a non-controlled retrospective cohort study that was confounded by a number of issues, including the fact that many of the people who were receiving hydroxychloroquine were also receiving corticosteroids, which we know from another study gives a clear benefit in reducing deaths with advanced disease. So that study is a flawed study, and I think anyone who examines it carefully is that it is not a randomized placebo-controlled trial.
It says it's peer-reviewed.
It doesn't matter. You can peer review something that's a bad study, but the fact is it is not a randomized placebo-controlled trial. The point that I think is important, because we all want to keep an open mind, any and all of the randomized placebo-controlled trials, which is the gold standard of determining if something is effective, none of them had shown any efficacy for hydroxychloroquine.
I wonder if Republicans ever get tired of humiliating themselves in front of the entire nation to carry water for Trump. This is Republican lawmaker Blaine Luetkemeyer from Missouri trying to explain hydroxychloroquine to the nation's premier immunologist and infectious diseases expert, Dr. Fauci. Now, I don't need to explain the reasons that this Republican is wrong because Dr. Fauci did a better job than I ever could, but I will say that the reason these people are setting themselves up for failure is to appeal to an audience of one, Donald Trump. Here's the thing, in a sane world, people like Blaine Luetkemeyer, who has a BA in poli-sci, would not try to override the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, who has been at his post since 1984 and has successfully steered the US through every pandemic during that time. He wouldn't try to fight him, he would defer to him, because Dr. Fauci is qualified and these Republicans with no experience in public health are not. And the fact that I have to say that out loud sums up pretty well why we're in the crisis that we're in right now. And why is all of this happening? Why are these contentious meetings and hearings with Dr. Fauci occurring? Because Trump decided to tie his political fortunes to hydroxychloroquine being a miracle cure for coronavirus. He didn't do any of the necessary work, no testing or contact tracing, not enough PPE, no endorsements for stay-at-home orders, no mask mandates, because he wanted to take the easy route, and the easy route was a malaria drug that was already readily available. And so when tests began to show that, lo and behold, this random drug propped up by Donald Trump, who is also not a doctor, isn't a cure for coronavirus, he decided to push back, because this isn't about science or medicine or reality, it's about his ego. Trump can't deal with being wrong. He would faster let the world burn than admit fault. And in a way, we're seeing evidence of that right now. But we know that about him. We expect nothing more from a guy who thinks that the sun and the moon revolve around him. What's almost more pathetic is these Republicans also humiliating themselves to do Trump's bidding for him. It's people like Luetkemeyer reading some random article that he found God knows where and trying to explain to the nation's top immunologist why in fact an unproven drug is good. And bear in mind, they know that the drug's efficacy is in doubt, but it's not about the drug, it's about Trump. It's about getting a nice tweet from him. That's it. This party's priorities start and end with validation from a guy who thinks that remembering person, woman, man, camera, TV means that he's a genius. And that's why having these anti-science Republicans in power right now is especially dangerous, because nothing is about facts, it's all about their cult of personality with Donald Trump. It's about backing up whatever random words fall out of Trump's mouth and treating it like it's gospel. But it's not. It is, per usual, a Hail Mary pass from a guy looking for the easiest way out. And the easiest way out is usually not the right way. But Trump has taken shortcuts his entire life. The only difference being that you can't shortcut your way out of a pandemic. And that's been made painfully obvious given the situation that we're in right now. So Republicans should think long and hard about whether that tweet they're hoping oh so hard for is really worth perpetuating misinformation to a country already suffering from a grossly mismanaged pandemic. They should think long and hard about whether it's worth it to contradict a man whose focus on public health has never been called into question and has always been successful. They should think long and hard about whether the confusion and chaos and loss of life that's born out of their efforts is really worth sucking up to Donald Trump. It shouldn't take long, because the answer is no. And don't forget to listen to my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, where I'll take a deep dive into the biggest issues of the week and interview major players in the world of politics, like Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, Beto O'Rourke, Eric Swalwell, Katie Porter, and many more. Again, that's No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, available anywhere you listen to podcasts.